Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Tales from the Shelf, and today we are talking about the 4K format. We're going to talk a little bit about my feelings on it as of today in 2024. This is a follow-up video to a video I made about 6 months ago. Honestly, can't remember, but that video was titled 4K to buy or not to buy, and this one will probably be titled something similar. In that video, I provided 5 examples of 5 movies that I did upgrade to 4K and 5 movies that I did not upgrade to 4K. And I gave reasons why. Now, that's currently the most viewed video on my channel, so I decided, hey, let's revisit that a little bit more in the future now. We've had more 4K releases. They're coming out every single day. So with that being said, I have 5 more examples for each category that I can give reasons why as to whether I did or did not upgrade. So I figured that would be fun. So before we get into it though, I just want to talk about how I feel about the 4K format today, since that's really all of what's being announced is like 4K re-releases of old Blu-rays. So that's not really seeming to be something that's slowing down at all. So I wanted to give like a State of the Union address in 2024. We're about halfway through the year, and just kind of talk about where my collecting habits are at as a collector. Now, I've said it before, but I've been collecting since 2018, so something that happens to most collectors is that when you first start out collecting, you really kind of are buying up all of the big titles. These are the Back to the Futures, the Lord of the Rings, the Star Warses, what have you. The big titles that are your favorite movies, Indiana Jones, Halloween, all that good stuff, right? You gotta have Indiana Jones, gotta have Halloween. As time goes by, you eventually start checking off all these big boxes, right? All the major heavy hitters, eventually we all have them. I've reached the point now where I own, with a few exceptions, literally like 5 or so exceptions, I own all of my favorite movies already. They're all on this shelf somewhere. To make things easy on myself, I'm able to look up my top rated movies on Letterboxd, go through them all, look at them and say, do I need to own that? And odds are I do already own it. And I'm able to follow that down up until the 4.5s, the 4s, even into some 3.5s. Wouldn't you know it, I own all of those movies already. So because of that, I am not always incentivized to upgrade those movies to 4K when they are inevitably announced. But there are exceptions, and we're going to talk about those in a second. Again, this is down to the individual. This is something that I feel like I need to say here because everybody's collecting habits and tendencies are different. Sometimes we align, sometimes we don't, and that's totally cool. So this video is really just to kind of give my 2 cents on the whole take. Things that matter, things that shouldn't matter, at least to me. Again, I'm not speaking for everyone. Everyone's situation's different. A lot of you have more room than I do. Maybe you have a bigger budget for movies. You know, I'm somebody who is prioritizing spending money on other things, saving money. Something that I started doing last year is I actually have a paper notebook where I write down every single transaction that I make that is spent on physical media. And then I tally it up at the end of the month, add it up, and then at the end of the year, I have a pretty conclusive number that I can point to and say, that's how much money I spent on physical media last year. Let's bring that down a little bit. You know, I'm at the phase now where I'm more focused on getting rid of movies than I am bringing in new stuff because space is limited and I want my collection to represent me as a person and not, you know, not have movies on my shelf that I know deep down that I will never watch again. All right, so let's talk about the 5 movies that I will not be upgrading to 4K. The first one is a recent acquisition, Crimson Peak, the Guillermo del Toro film. Now, very recently, at the time of this recording, Arrow Video released a 4K big box set of Crimson Peak. Pretty decent fan of Crimson Peak. I think it's a good movie. I really enjoy the atmosphere and the effects in it. I think it's a pretty interesting story as well with some great performances, and it's just sort of like a classic ghost story. You know, Guillermo del Toro loves the sort of old school kind of horror. And this feels like his interpretation of that with his own Guillermo spin on it. But however, you know, I wasn't immediately sold on the 4K. You know, it was a little expensive and I had seen a review where, you know, it didn't seem like the upgrade in picture quality was that great. And then, wouldn't you know it, I'm out shopping at a used Blu-ray store the other day. And lo and behold, I found this Blu-ray of Crimson Peak for like $5. Brought it home. It's a lot cheaper than the Arrow Video version. I think that's going for like 36 bucks right now. Watched it on my big TV out there in the Sony 4K player, and it looks great. I mean, it looks great. This is a pretty modern movie, and this is going to be a recurring thing that I talk about a little bit later as well with some other titles. But after a certain point, modern movies like this don't really benefit that much from a 4K upgrade. At least not enough for me to justify spending the money on it. So for this to look as good as it does, and for the price that it was, it's a clear I'm good on the 4K from Arrow. All right, so the next one is Roadhouse. Now, this is a movie that I really enjoy. Big fan of Roadhouse. This Shout Select Collector's Edition, picture quality is great. It's got a ton of great special features. Vinegar Syndrome does have a 4K big box set of this. I don't think you can get the big box set anymore. I think you get like a bare bones 4K of it. All the same features and stuff, but without the box set and the pamphlet and all that other poster and all that good stuff. So theoretically I could get that, but for me, this one, it's just good enough. I know that the Vinegar Syndrome release probably has special features that the Shout Select does not. I know that the picture quality is most likely an upgrade, although this does look very good. And for me, it looks good enough. And the 4K from Vinegar Syndrome, I like Vinegar Syndrome as a label, but they are almost, for me, prohibitively too expensive in some aspects. It's made it so that I only own like 5 Vinegar Syndrome titles because, quite frankly, I just never feel like I need to get them, at least not right away. So this is good. This is good for me. Shout Select, you know, they do good work. All right, so the next one, number 3, is Malignant. I love this movie. I think it's James Wan's best movie, and so I was super happy to grab this right when it came out in like 2021. I think it was November. And then 6 months later, they released the 4K. It's just like a bare bones 4K. It doesn't even have a slipcover that I know of. And so that was a case where I already bought the Blu-ray, and then 6 months later they dropped the 4K on you. You know how they love doing that sometimes, especially like Universal, I think. So at that point I was like, no, I'm not double dipping. I really like the movie, but it's a new enough movie to where I would be really hard pressed to believe that the 4K is drastically better than the Blu-ray's quality. It's not like it's a movie where it's shot on film, I guess is what I'm getting at. Like that would be sort of the cutoff almost. But yeah, things like this that are shot on digital, like I'm good with it. And the fact that you waited 6 months really screwed me out of any purchase that I may have made there. All right, so number 4 is one that I would think many of us have opted not to go with because it's T2, and this is infamously one of the worst 4K transfers of all time. I haven't seen it. I've only heard online how bad it is, and therefore never felt compelled to buy it. So I got this pretty early on in my collection. Again, Terminator 2 was one of the first movies I bought because it's one of the best movies ever made. It's one of my favorites. So by the time I heard that there was a 4K and heard that it was super bad, I was like, okay, I'll just get this then. All right, and the last one, number 5, is Cloverfield. This got a 4K Steelbook. I'm of the opinion that something like this, where it's found footage, doesn't really need a 4K. Found footage is sort of, by design, meant to kind of look like shit. Now, that being said, if a Blair Witch 4K ever came out, I would most likely buy that because that's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Cloverfield, however, is not. So when I saw that that 4K Steelbook was coming out, I was just like, pass. All right, so that was 5 Blu-rays that I did not upgrade to 4K. I tried to have a little bit of a different reason each time there, so I wasn't just kind of repeating myself. So if you agreed with any of those reasons and didn't upgrade for the same reasons as I didn't, let me know in the comments because I would be curious to know about that. All right, so the first movie that I did upgrade is Sleepy Hollow. I like Tim Burton. I like some of his movies. This is hands down my favorite. And the reason that I decided to upgrade this is not only is it my favorite Tim Burton movie, but I really think it would benefit from it. It's got a ton of this like really beautiful black and white gothic imagery. It's got like that surrealism to it where it almost looks like they're on like a set, but that's not to say that it looks bad. It looks great. He's able to do it in such a way that it really gives this movie a distinct look that I would be hard pressed to think of ever appearing in any other movie before. That's sort of a long-winded, rambly way to say that I really like Sleepy Hollow, and I was more than happy to upgrade this at a pretty reasonable price, I might add. Alright, so the next one that I upgraded was After Hours. I only had a DVD of this, and then Criterion announced their 4K of it. So going from DVD all the way to 4K, and especially with it being such a great movie that I really enjoy, sort of a no-brainer. I almost don't even need to say anything else outside of that. You get the new great, slim, beautiful Criterion 4K packaging, special features. What else can you really say here? This was a no-brainer. All right, so the next one is Suspiria, from the Synapse Blu-ray to the Synapse 4K. Now, I will say, this is one of the best Blu-rays that I've ever seen. If you popped this disc in for me and told me that it was a 4K and I didn't know, I would believe you, because it looks that good. And for that reason, I didn't upgrade this for a really long time. But then I got a gift card to Orbit DVD, and I was able to get this for a pretty good price, and I had to do it. It's one of my favorite Argento films, and it's one of the movies that I think of when I think of movies that would benefit from the 4K format, because the color palette, as everyone knows, is so good. So the next one is Peter Jackson's King Kong from 2005, standard edition 4K. I guess I say standard. It's not standard. It's like the ultimate edition, but it doesn't have a slipcover, is what I mean by that. I love the Peter Jackson King Kong. I think it's great. It's one of my favorite movies from Peter Jackson, and I think it looks really great today. I think it's held up pretty well. And so for that reason, it was a movie that I was able to get it for the right price of the 4K. I think it has like a ton more special features than that Blu-ray does. That Blu-ray was like a $3 pickup from like Big Lots. It's a really bare bones edition, so I thought that that movie was definitely worth getting in 4K for me, because I'm a big fan of it. Alright, so the last one that I upgraded is The Warriors. This is the director's cut, and to my understanding, a lot of people do not like this director's cut. The reason they don't like it is because Walter Hill did this thing where he inserted this like comic book panel vignette sort of thing as like a scene transition device. A lot of people don't really like it. To my knowledge, that's the only inclusion that he made. So it did feel kind of strange. It was sort of like a George Lucas situation with the prequels and stuff, and the originals for that matter. So when Arrow announced this one, I decided that I would definitely grab it, because this includes the theatrical version, where they get rid of that whole comic booky thing. And it really doesn't feel all that natural, this being a 70s film. And then it cuts to this like kind of cheesy, not of the 70s comic book panel transition throughout the movie, so it kind of takes you out of it in that way. So yeah, and then of course I love this movie as well. That's a criteria that kind of goes without saying for all of these, but really enjoy The Warriors. So for all those reasons, and then plus, I mean, come on. Now, granted, this is not the sort of thing that will get me to buy all the time, but sometimes I do enjoy getting these chunky Arrow box sets, because they do look so great on the shelf. And I believe I got this as like a Christmas present, so I was like, yeah, get me this. It helps when I'm not actually buying it myself. You know, it always feels better when someone else gets it for you. Alright guys, so that was 5 movies that I upgraded to 4K and 5 movies that I did not.
I did not.
Let me know if you got these 4Ks that I got, or if you decided not to get the same 4Ks that I did not get for the same reasons. I would be interested to know. I think this is a topic that is not talked about enough in the physical media collecting corner of YouTube. So I'm always interested in having discussions about this. I think it's really fascinating what will motivate one person to buy something versus what will motivate another. We're all different, and that's what makes this whole community so interesting and cool. So yeah, drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know if you want more physical media kind of videos like this. Always happy to make them, so let me know if that's something you're into. And with that, guys, take care and watch more movies.